Welcome to my tutorial for Ray Chasers for PlayStation 1. And this is the normal mode and the chase mode. I figured this game would be good to have a tutorial option for, just because it can be a little tricky at points. It wasn't too bad. It took me a little bit under 2 hours to beat. And that was mainly because of a few of the bosses. The levels are extremely easy. There's really not much to say about the levels. You just have to make it to the checkpoints in time, but you have plenty of time usually to get to the checkpoints. So the square button you can use to make tight turns, kind of like your emergency brake to make tighter turns. And circle is your nitro, which you have to hold down to get a speed boost. I suggest never using the nitro on any of the levels themselves. Just save it for the bosses, because the bosses can be tough. And the nitro will give you a big advantage if used right. The way I usually use nitro is I use it in very short bursts when I'm right up close to the boss to get a hit in. You really don't want to use it when you're far away from the boss and hold it down, because you'll waste a lot of the bar just trying to get to the boss and get the hit in. It's better to get up close and then line yourself up. Try to line yourself up as straight as possible most of the time and then use it. And as soon as the hit lands, release the nitro. And then line up another shot. That's usually what I do. That technique works throughout the entire game. But yeah, as you go through these checkpoints, you'll get time extensions. I mean, if you really want points, you can kill the enemies, but my tutorials are really just to get through games most of the time. So, if you see me killing enemies, it's usually accidental, because it does slow you down most of the time. So I recommend avoiding the enemies and just racing through the levels. So now we have the first boss. Now these guys can be tough. This took me some tries. I was initially playing as the red car, and then I switched over to the blue car, found I did better. I think it's because the blue car, it may be faster and it may do a little bit more damage. But I also just got better at the bosses. The idea is basically just try to line yourself up straight with these bosses, and then use your turbo when you're close and get those hits in. Sometimes if you hit them on a corner, you can kind of grind them and get a double hit in like that. So, try to do that sometimes too. But most of the time, try to go for those head-on strikes and line yourself up directly with the boss. If you see him charging up a shot, just move to the left or right so you don't get hit by the shot. It'll just slow you down. You can't get killed by getting shot in this game. Your main enemy is time. Anything that slows you down. Most of these boss fights come down to the last second, so you don't want to lose any time. And of course, you want to do well on the levels themselves so that you have more time to fight the boss. So you don't want to play too sloppy on the level. That yellowish green kind of bar filling up on the left is your progress in the level. When that gets full, you're at the boss. And of course, the thing that says nitro is your nitro bar. But yeah, another very easy level. But when I say level, I'm just talking about the racing portion of the level, not the boss fight. Though I don't remember which boss this was, but I'll see it when the video gets to that point, and I'll remember. I just beat this, about an hour ago, so it'll be fresh in my mind. I haven't posted tutorials for some of the games I beat today because some of them are just very easy games, very self-explanatory. I killed off a bunch of Coleco games today, which are just, arcade ports that are very short. And Chase H.Q. on Saturn on the easy mode, which is, pretty easy. So there wasn't much to say about that, but I will do some tutorials for Sparkster today, because Sparkster, is a little challenging, so that might be worthwhile to add some commentary. I try to release both versions, a commentary version and a version without commentary, just to have a little variety. This boss is extremely easy. All you have to do is make sure you're lined up with him directly and then hit turbo. And don't do it from too far away, obviously. You don't want to waste too much turbo for no reason, but just get within range, line yourself up kind of straight. There's not a lot of sharp turns in this fight, so it's extremely easy. He takes a lot of damage when you hit him, it seems. Or maybe it's just because it's easy to hit him. He just dies fast. After beating those two bosses, this is going to be much, much easier, so you shouldn't have any problem with this fight. the first boss is actually kind of difficult for a first boss compared to some of the other fights. Welcome back to part 2 of the Ray Tracers tutorial. I think I called it Ray Chasers last video. But, yeah, so there's going to be some parts that get harder. But as mentioned, you know, all the levels themselves are easy. All the racing portions of the levels are very easy. So, you know, try to avoid the enemies. Use the emergency brake sometimes for the tight turns, but, you know, I don't even think you really have to try too hard with these levels. But some of the bosses can be tough. I also had an issue with my TV. I'm waiting for a circuit board to come in for my TV, and it's a C7 OLED LG, and I have to get the panel replaced. But the problem is some of the colors are missing. So when I was playing this game, some areas are extremely dark, and on the final boss fight, there's times when I can't see the final boss, and I can't even see my own car. So I kind of use the center of the screen as a somewhat of a guide, and the walls inside some of the tunnels, it's a pain in the ass. But so it wasn't optimal for playing this game. I was able to play some old Genesis games and side scrollers, you know, easily enough. But this game gets real dark on my TV, almost, you know, invisible at times. So, you know, some of my turning may be a little weird, but it was good enough. This boss is actually one of the bosses that gave me the most trouble, aside from the final boss. The final boss is very difficult, but this boss was a pain in the ass. I probably should have saved state and practiced it more, so I didn't have to keep redoing the entire level. I probably would have saved a lot of time. But I was kind of stubborn. I didn't really use save states in this playthrough, except to save my progress if I was going to shut the game off. But I just, you know, I played it in one session. So it took me a little bit under 2 hours, so it wasn't that bad. I took a few breaks, but you know, I didn't have to shut the PC off. I also used it to reset when I was playing badly. I would just load the state at the beginning of the level because you get infinite continues. Yeah, so this boss is tough, but I have some good tips for him, make it a lot easier. You know, you'll have to practice, but the idea is you want to line up to this guy head on. I mean, and be very close like this, and when you are, use that turbo in short bursts, and as soon as you hit him, release the turbo so you don't waste it. And, you know, just stay right on his fucking ass. And when you're close, use that little bit of turbo, just enough to get that ram in. And that's all you really have to do. Just, you know, stay centered with him. Do not try to hit him from the sides. Because trying to hit this guy from the sides like I just tried there, most of the time he's like, he won't even make contact with you if you try to ram him from the side. A lot of the bosses and enemies do that shit where you think you should be landing the hit on the side, but it won't fucking go through a lot of the times. Sometimes it will, but yeah, with this guy, I found it extremely unreliable. So I'd recommend just, you know, going head on, just get within that range and keep him centered and just try to ram him right in the fucking ass. And you should be good to go. You know, don't expect to get it right away, but you'll get it. If you keep that technique in mind, it won't be too bad. Now this level I found to be extremely easy for some reason, and I got it on the first try. I think it was one of the only levels that I got on the first try. There may have been one more. But, yeah, this level was very easy. It has all the bosses again, but I think it does. I think this is the level that recycles all the bosses. But, you know, I guess let me see. I mean, because I might actually be wrong about that. But, yeah, I'm pretty fucking sure. But we'll see. I'll wait till the first boss comes up to assume that. I didn't really remember, you know, which levels were which exactly. Yeah, this is the level that recycles all the bosses. This is a really easy level because that guy takes a lot of hits. You can fight him if you want. I don't think you have to kill him, but he does get in the way anyway. You'll probably end up hitting into him anyway because he's always in the way. But the bosses are much easier because they seem to take massive damage when you hit them now. So They die much faster. And there's really nothing to say about these boss fights because you've already fought all these bosses. So you'll have an easier time than you did when you fought them the first time because they take massive damage from you. So you're just going to use the same tactics pretty much. They may be easier in some ways because I don't think you have all the sharp turns and shit like that you had in some of the original fights. Again, with this guy, all you're going to do is just line yourself up, keep close, and just use the turbo in short bursts. It probably actually would have been better not to use the turbo on this guy. I mean, it's a waste. But this was my first time playing the level. But I'm sure you don't even need the turbo for this guy. You can probably just ram him normally. I wasted most of my turbo just on this guy, but I still had an easy time beating the level. But it would probably be better to save it up. Well, actually, never mind. I guess this level was just a really easy fucking level. I forgot about this level. I think the next level, yeah, this is the level. I think this is the level that recycles the bosses. But yeah, that helicopter is extremely easy. It's pretty similar. I think you already fought one in one of the other levels. But if not, yeah, I believe it's like the same as the other helicopter you fought. But yeah, see, now you're fighting all the bosses again, pretty much. Or most of them, anyway. But they take a lot of damage when you hit them, it seems. Yeah, they take massive damage, so... And, I don't think the turns are a lot easier in here. So this is very easy. You shouldn't have any problems with this. And then there's a new boss. After you beat all these bosses, you fight a new boss, but it's very easy as well. There's really not much of a challenge on this level compared to the others. I think I beat both the previous level and this level on my first try. So these were very easy levels. The other levels all took me multiple tries, I believe. But these two are like a break. This is the same type of helicopter you just fought, but it's the previous one, which was also very similar to the other one in the previous level, but very easy. And this is the other helicopter, the one you just fought, but takes even more damage. And this guy's very easy. You're pretty much just going to line up and ram him as you have been with all the other bosses for the most part. Occasionally you may want to avoid some of his charge attacks. See, I get a bunch of rams in initially, which made him extremely easy. I was just right on his ass and held turbo. Sometimes his fire moves can be a little bit of a nuisance because they'll waste some of your time. But try to get in when the crane, where the fire on the crane isn't. Try to get in those gaps and get those hits in. You have plenty of chances, though, to get up on him. Yep, and that's it for this level. Stay tuned for the final part, and I'll explain in detail about how to take down the final boss. Welcome to the final part of the Ray Tracers tutorial. And this guy's tough. This can take a while. I think this probably took me over an hour. It took a while. This boss fight was tough. Part of it is because the screen on my TV is kind of broken right now, and some of the colors don't work, and it goes nearly completely dark to the point where I can't see my car and the boss car in some of the tunnels. So I had to kind of use the center of the screen as a guide, but it wasn't great. So some of my turning may be off. But yeah, anyway, the idea is you want to get pretty good at this track to where you're not hitting the walls a lot. So you want to use I hit the walls a lot, but you want to use your emergency brake a lot to try to stay in the center of the road to make those sharp turns and kind of turn with them. And you want to try to cut them off. The best time to hit them is usually when you see those long arrows that point to a narrow opening that you have to turn into. That's a good point to get him at a bottleneck and ram into him. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a moment. But there's several of them in the level. You pretty much just keep doing laps for a long period of time. And I really budgeted my turbo on this fight and made it, much more manageable. And the way I use it is similar to how I've been using it. I only use it when I'm really close to the boss for a short burst, enough to hit him. Like that. And that's the bottleneck I was talking about with those arrows that were pointing into that narrow opening. It'll either be on the left or the right side, depending on which. See, like that's on the left. You go in there, boom, hit them. And aside from that, you want to try not to hit the walls and try to make your turns as well as you can using that emergency brake and staying tight on them. So you use that turbo, get that ram in. And it can be a tough boss, especially because I was doing parts of it kind of blind in some of the tunnels. I'm sure that made it harder. But yeah, make sure you save up that turbo. Don't use it to try to get greedy and go for a long stretch and hit him, because you'll waste most of it if you do that. You want to wait till you're really, really close to him before you even use it. Best to be lined up right behind him if you can when you use it, but you're not always going to be able to do that. So if you're in that bottleneck, and he's really close to you, you can use that turbo and he'll kind of just hit into you as you're going through that narrow gap, if you're close enough. But I guess it's not really a narrow gap, but it does kind of channel him to one side, and it can make it so that he yeah, that's narrow though. That one's narrow. Some of them are narrow. But you want to try to utilize those. It's good also to stay on the opposing end to where he is, like in a different lane than he is sometimes when there's a turn coming up, because he's going to have to switch lanes to make the turn. And when he does that, you can try to get in there and smash him, get a hit in. So I try to do that as well. And I ended up having a good amount of time left on the clock, so this actually went really smooth. But yeah, it took me a lot of turns, so just keep trying it and you'll be able to get it. But you may have to practice. And that's pretty much it. That clears out the mode. Yeah, so thanks for watching. I'm going to put up some tutorials for Sparkster next. I didn't complete that game yet on the Genesis, but I figured I'd bang out a few of the tutorials on the parts that I have completed. So stay tuned.